A founder called me today and asked me about an exercise on how to help his team. I think he was talking about his team handle stress. I'm not too sure if he was going to go do a workshop or have a meeting. He just said, how do we handle stress super fast? And he'd experienced some of my exercises before. And I gave him the advice that I usually give everybody and the exercises that I do and lead other people through. And I thought to myself, would this be a great opportunity to help other founders with the same exercise and to give this sort of quick tip on the fastest way that I found to be able to handle my own stress as well as the stress of my team or help them with their own individual stress. Stress is just going to come with the territory when it comes to being a founder. So the first thing I want to point out is that stress is neither good nor bad. It's our response to stress can be appropriate or inappropriate or adaptive or maladaptive. And to understand that when we go into stress response, your body is actually out of homeostasis. There's something going on, and typically there's some type of stress response associated with fear or an emotion that we consider negative, but it's actually driving you to make changes. So first off, not seeing stress as a bad thing is important. A lot of people really have the misconception that stress is going to kill you. It's not stress that kills you. It's your inappropriate responses to stress. Say, for example, you get stressed and you drink and you become an alcoholic. Well, that is an inappropriate response to stress. Alcohol will kill you. Or if you're like me and you become an emotional eater and you just eat sugary foods because you're feeling stressed, because food has an impact on your physiology, your brain chemistry, and gives you short-term relief, while long-term you're going to suffer. That's what's going to kill you. So stress itself does not kill you. In fact, stress can be very adaptive and your response can be very appropriate, and stress can make you better. In other words, that which does not kill you makes you stronger. But if you don't deal with the emotional part, it will eventually kill you. So this is the advice that I give to founders. Make stress your friend. Stress is part of the job. And in fact, for founders in particular, where you're experiencing stress often will lead you to some very innovative moments if you deal with it appropriately. And you'll start to have a lot of empathy for users, the people that you're working with, because startups are incredibly stressful. Let's just accept that. So let me just jump right into how to handle stress the fastest way possible. And this is super simple. So most people, when they say the word stress, they actually don't mean stress. That may sound really weird, but if I say, okay, I am stressed, and I got this technique from Susan David. She's the psychologist, talks about emotional leakage and emotional agility, and just kind of adapted it for a quick response. And she would ask her clients, how about we find two other words that describe your stress more appropriately? And here's a little pro tip. I found that most executives, male executives, that when I do executive coaching, when they say they're stressed, it actually is code for fear. And so fear isn't always the best word. I try and have people break down the fear in two separate words. So you don't want to go into just generic words, or some people just are too afraid to admit that they're afraid. But I asked them, okay, what are two words that you can use to describe stress? And then what happens is, so they'll take two words. And so say, for example, the response is, I'm stressed because I feel rejected. And the other thing is, I'm stressed because I feel hopeless. Let me give you a little pro tip here. Sometimes you're going to have to expand that emotional vocabulary, which is the first technique to learn emotional intelligence. And so often, I especially do this with my kids, they will come and tell me, I feel so stressed. And I'm like, okay, what are 2 words that would describe your stress? And they will just go and they'll just start talking. And I'll say, what you are describing to me sounds like pressure. You feel pressure right now because of the deadline. And they'll say, yeah, that's exactly it. And that's how often it will go, that people will need more emotional vocabulary or some coaching to expand that. Or if you're going through this, you're going to have to Google some words and find other words, or just say, what's that emotion when I'm feeling this, etc. And it's a wonderful exercise because it expands your emotional intelligence, exercises different parts of your brain. But going through the exercise, you actually access the prefrontal cortex, which is the executive function of the brain, calms you down and gets you out of there. So that's important. So it's the same way when someone's having a panic attack, you ask them to count some numbers in a different order and mix them up, or ask them to repeat the orders, and it accesses different parts of the brain, gets them out of that emotional hijacking zone, and gives you a good opportunity to kind of get them settled and self-regulated. That's the technique. So just letting you know, sometimes it takes a little bit of work to get to those 2 words. All right. So now we've got 2 words: rejected, stressed. So rejected and hopeless, to describe stress a little bit better. And then I'll just ask some questions to them. So then I'll ask, what's going on when you feel rejected? When does this usually happen? How do you think you got there? Or how does it happen that way? And who else is involved? Or who are you, or who do you see yourself to be when you are feeling rejected? And this is just a method of inquiry. There's no right or wrong answers. All I'm doing is I'm getting them out of that neural pathway to stressed, and I'm making them develop more neural pathways or self-awareness and understanding of what rejected means to them. And then I will ask them, all right, so based on that, what is the one courageous thing that you could do to deal with rejection? Again, no right or wrong answers. And let me just tell you, I don't try and give them the answers. I don't jump in and start doling out advice or coaching. You know what you need to do? You know what you must do? Type thing. That doesn't go over well at all. I don't know if you've ever experienced when someone gives you unsolicited advice. I may ask permission. Do you mind if I give you some examples, or if I give you a little pro tip that I use, and I'll ask permission? That puts them in a position where they're going to receive what I have to say. But if I'm doing it myself, I'll say, what is it I'm experiencing when I feel rejected? When do I feel it? How did it get this way? And who am I? And who am I with when this happens? And then I'll ask myself, so what's the one courageous thing to do? So one thing. Now, the benefit of this is now we're not dealing with stress. This is the reason I say it's the fastest way to deal with stress. Don't make it about stress. Stress is fine. But now we want to deal with rejection. So this is the key. So now we're getting to the real thing, like rejection. How are we dealing with rejection and hopelessness? And just by that exercise, I find that people will start to access the inner tools that they already have to begin dealing with these particular emotions, because stress is such a vague term. Nobody really knows how to deal with it. And you know what? Let's stop making it bad, but let's talk about the appropriate responses to rejection, to hopelessness. So that's a little exercise. Once again, if you're feeling stressed, try and find 2 words to describe your stress, then ask yourself what, when, how, who, and then figure out what is the one courageous thing that I could do. And sometimes that's not do anything, be patient, or go to the gym, or, drink a glass of water is one courageous thing to do. I'm not going to stew over it right now. It's going to be the same thing the next day. And then also, this is a great way to lead other people. And so if you have a team person and they say, oh, we're so stressed, let's all do this exercise. What are 2 words to describe stress? what, when, how, who, have everybody share, and then have everybody share the one courageous thing. I do this all the time with the groups that I lead, especially those that need coaching or in really intense situations. So there is your little pro tip for the day. Hopefully that is fast and quick, and you can try it yourself and get some really good results. As always, available for office hours. Come join us and let us know what you need as founders. Happy to help any way that I can.